Imagine finding out that something you do every single morning, something you do specifically because you are trying to be healthy, because you are trying to take care of yourself, because you want to live long enough to watch your grandchildren grow up, is quietly and systematically clogging your arteries from the inside out. Does that sound extreme? Unfortunately, it is not. Right now, in kitchens across America, tens of millions of adults over the age of 60 are sitting down to a breakfast they believe is giving them energy, protecting their heart, and keeping them strong. And the most frightening part? For many of them, that same breakfast is depositing a thick, waxy buildup along the walls of their arteries, silently every single morning, increasing their risk of heart attack and stroke with each passing year. And here is the most dangerous part of all. The number one offender on the list I am about to share with you, the one that surprises almost everyone, you have probably been eating specifically because a doctor, a commercial, or a well-meaning family member told you it was good for your heart. We will get to that in a moment. In the next 20 minutes, I am going to show you 5 common breakfast foods that are slowly, invisibly clogging your arteries after age 60. I am going to show you exactly what each one does inside your blood vessels, using real research from named journals. And more importantly, I will show you what to replace each one with, so you can start protecting your arteries beginning tomorrow morning. What you are about to hear is not exaggeration. It is not fear-mongering. It is vascular medicine. My name is Dr. Margaret Ellison. I am a board-certified vascular surgeon, a specialist in the arteries and blood vessels that carry life through your body. I have spent over 2 decades operating on patients whose arteries had become dangerously narrowed or blocked. I have held human arteries in my hands. I have seen what builds up inside them, and I am here because what I see in my operating room is preventable. If you are over 60, this message could save your life. Here is something most people do not realize. Atherosclerosis, the medical term for the hardening and narrowing of arteries caused by plaque buildup, does not happen overnight. It builds over years, even decades. But after the age of 60, the process accelerates. The arteries become stiffer, the inflammatory response weakens, and certain foods that your body could once process without major damage now act like sandpaper dragged along the inner walls of your blood vessels, triggering inflammation, fat deposits, and eventually the dangerous plaques that rupture and cause heart attacks and strokes. The 5 breakfast foods I am going to share with you today are not exotic or unusual. They are sitting in your pantry right now. They are in your refrigerator, and for most people over 60, at least 3 of them are being consumed almost daily. I also want you to stay through the entire list, because after number 1, I am going to give you a complete set of 5 protective rules. Rules that activate only when all 5 are used together. Without those rules, even fixing your breakfast will not be enough. And before we begin the countdown, I want to plant something in your mind. The number 1 breakfast food on this list, the one that does the most damage to arteries in adults over 60, is something most cardiologists are only now beginning to speak publicly about. It is not butter. It is not eggs. It is not bacon. When I reveal it at number 1, I want you to remember this moment. You had probably been told it was good for your heart. Let us begin. Number 5 on our countdown, flavored yogurt. I know, that probably surprised you. Many people hear yogurt and immediately think protein, probiotics, calcium, healthy gut. And plain full-fat yogurt absolutely has those benefits. But here is the part that surprises almost everyone, and I see this confusion constantly in patients over 60. The moment yogurt becomes flavored, strawberry, blueberry, peach, vanilla, the nutritional profile transforms completely. Here is what is happening inside your body when you eat a serving of flavored yogurt every morning. A standard 6-ounce container of flavored low-fat yogurt contains between 17 and 26 grams of added sugar. That is nearly the equivalent of eating 6 teaspoons of table sugar alongside your breakfast. In a 60-year-old body, that spike of sugar triggers a surge of insulin, a hormone that, in elevated amounts, promotes inflammation in the arterial lining. That lining is called the endothelium. It is a single layer of cells, thinner than a human hair, that protects your artery walls. When it becomes inflamed, it becomes sticky, and sticky arterial walls trap LDL cholesterol particles, low-density lipoprotein, the so-called bad cholesterol, which then oxidize and form the waxy plaque deposits that narrow your arteries over time. A major study published in JAMA Internal Medicine tracked over 43,000 adults for 15 years. Researchers found that people who consumed 25% or more of their daily calories from added sugar had more than double the risk of fatal cardiovascular disease compared to those who kept added sugar below 10%. Double the risk, not from candy or soda alone, from foods marketed as healthy, including flavored dairy products. Think of your arteries like the pipes in an old house. When they are clean and flexible, water, or in this case blood, flows easily. But when a sticky residue builds up on the inside of those pipes year after year, the opening narrows, the pressure rises. Eventually, a piece of that buildup breaks free, travels through the pipe, and causes a catastrophic blockage. That is what a heart attack or stroke looks like from the inside. And flavored yogurt, eaten every morning for years, is one of the substances building that residue. I remember a 67-year-old patient named Sandra. She came to me after a minor stroke, what doctors call a transient ischemic attack, or TIA, that had briefly affected her speech and left hand. When I reviewed her diet, she was proud. She told me she had eaten low-fat flavored yogurt every single morning for 11 years because her previous doctor had told her low-fat was heart-healthy. Her carotid arteries, the large arteries on either side of your neck that supply blood to your brain, were 22% narrowed on the right side. 11 years of daily added sugar had contributed to that narrowing, quietly, one breakfast at a time. She had no idea. How many times per week do you eat flavored yogurt? Write that real number in the comments below. That number tells you exactly how many mornings per week your arteries may have been facing this unnecessary inflammatory load. Your honesty in that comment might be the thing that motivates you to make the change. The good news is this: the fix is simple and immediate. Switch to plain, full-fat Greek yogurt. No added sugar. Full fat does not clog arteries the way oxidized sugar does. I will explain why in a moment. Add your own fresh berries for natural sweetness and the benefit of real antioxidants. Your arteries will feel the difference within weeks. Now, as dangerous as flavored yogurt is, the fourth breakfast food on this list is something that has been aggressively marketed as the perfect morning meal for older adults. And the marketing has worked so well that millions of people over 60 eat it every single day without a second thought. Number 4 on our countdown, store-bought granola. This one carries a special kind of danger because the word granola has become synonymous with healthy eating. Hikers eat it, athletes eat it, nutritionists recommend it. But here is what most people do not realize, and this is especially true for adults over 60. The granola you buy in a bag or a box at the grocery store is not the same thing as the wholesome rolled oats and nuts that the word conjures in your mind. It is, in most cases, a processed, sugar and oil-coated confection that behaves more like a dessert than a health food. Here is what is happening inside your body. A typical half-cup serving of commercial granola, which is considered one portion, though most people eat closer to a full cup, contains between 12 and 20 grams of added sugar, 4 to 8 grams of refined vegetable oil, and a glycemic load that sends blood sugar spiking within 20 minutes of eating. In adults over 60, that blood sugar spike does two damaging things simultaneously. First, it triggers the same endothelial inflammation we discussed with yogurt. Second, it elevates triglycerides, a type of fat in the blood. Elevated triglycerides are directly associated with the buildup of dense LDL particles in arterial walls. Research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition followed over 15,000 adults for 12 years and found that high refined carbohydrate intake including processed breakfast cereals and granolas, increase the risk of cardiovascular events by 33% in adults over age 60 compared to those eating minimally processed carbohydrates. 33% higher risk from breakfast. Think of the vegetable oils in granola, sunflower oil, canola oil, soybean oil, as a kind of industrial solvent that has been heated at high temperatures during processing. When polyunsaturated fats are exposed to heat, they oxidize. Oxidized fats are like tiny shards of biological glass. When they enter your bloodstream, they scratch the delicate endothelial lining of your arteries. That scratching triggers an immune response. White blood cells rush in, cholesterol follows, and plaque begins to form around those microscopic injury sites. Every bag of commercial granola contains millions of these oxidized fat particles. I remember a 71-year-old patient named Harold, a retired teacher meticulous about his health, who had eaten a large bowl of granola with skim milk every morning for over 8 years. He came to me after experiencing chest tightness on a walk. An imaging scan revealed early-stage coronary artery disease, narrowing in 2 of the arteries supplying his heart muscle. He was devastated. He believed his breakfast had been protecting him. It had been doing the opposite. The good news is this: you do not have to give up a satisfying morning meal. Steel-cut oats cooked from scratch, not instant oats, which are processed similarly to granola, with a handful of raw walnuts and a sprinkle of cinnamon, provide everything your body needs in the morning without the inflammatory oils or added sugars. Your arteries will thank you within the first month. Now, the next item on this list, number 3, involves a food that has been the symbol of American mornings for over 50 years. And the reason it belongs on this list has nothing to do with what you might expect. Number 3 on our countdown: processed breakfast meats. Bacon, sausage, ham, turkey sausage, Canadian bacon. These are the proteins that anchor hundreds of millions of breakfasts every morning in America. And the danger is not simply the fat content. It is something far more insidious, something that most people over 60 have never been told about. It is the sodium nitrate. Here is what is happening inside your body. Sodium nitrate is a preservative used in virtually all cured and processed meats. In the body, nitrates react with amino acids to form compounds called nitrosamines. Nitrosamines are powerful oxidizing agents that damage the inner lining of your arteries. A study published in the European Heart Journal analyzed data from 450,000 individuals across 10 countries and found that people who consumed processed meat daily had a 28% higher risk of heart failure and a 34% higher risk of developing cardiovascular disease compared to those who rarely or never ate processed meat. But here is the part that surprises almost everyone. It is not the fat in bacon that causes the most arterial damage. Fat, in its natural state, is not the enemy. It is the chemical preservation process that transforms a natural pork product into something that behaves like an inflammatory toxin once it enters your blood. The sodium, the nitrates, and the cooking process, particularly high heat frying, which generates additional oxidized fats, combine to create a triple threat against your arterial health every single morning you eat it. Think of nitrosamines as tiny lit matches being dragged along the inside of your arteries. Each one causes a micro-injury. Your immune system responds. Cholesterol rushes in to patch the site. Over years, those patches become plaques. Those plaques narrow the artery, and a narrowed artery is a time bomb. I remember a 64-year-old patient named Robert, construction foreman, physically active, strong, seemingly healthy. He had eaten bacon or sausage with his eggs every morning since his early 40s. He suffered a heart attack at 63 that required emergency bypass surgery. When we opened his chest and examined his coronary arteries, 3 of the 4 major vessels had significant blockages. A man who exercised regularly and felt strong. The damage had been building silently for 2 decades, one breakfast at a time. He recovered, but his life changed permanently. The good news is this: eggs, despite decades of controversy, are not your enemy at breakfast. 2 eggs cooked in a small amount of olive oil provide high-quality protein, healthy fats, and zero nitrates. If you want a meat with your eggs, choose fresh, unprocessed turkey or chicken, the key word being unprocessed. Nothing cured, nothing smoked, nothing that came out of a vacuum-sealed plastic package with a month-long shelf life. Now, we are at number 2 on our countdown. And I want to prepare you for this one because it is going to challenge something most of you believe deeply. Number 2 is something that has been recommended by doctors, endorsed by governments, and sold by food companies as the single most heart-healthy breakfast food you can eat. And here is what most people do not realize. The version most Americans consume every morning is not even close to what the research actually recommends. Number 2 on our countdown, instant oatmeal. Not oatmeal in general. Specifically the instant flavored pre-packaged variety that comes in little paper envelopes and takes 90 seconds to prepare. The kind that tastes like brown sugar, maple syrup, or apple cinnamon. The kind that 40 million Americans eat every single morning believing they are protecting their heart. Here is what is happening inside your body. The processing required to make oats cook in 90 seconds strips away a significant portion of the beta-glucan, a soluble fiber that is the actual heart-protective compound in whole oats. Beta-glucan binds to LDL cholesterol in the digestive tract and carries it out of the body before it can enter the bloodstream. When that fiber is stripped, you lose most of the cardiovascular benefit. What remains is a rapidly digestible, high glycemic carbohydrate that spikes blood sugar faster than many candy bars. And when you add the 12 to 17 grams of added sugar in flavored instant oatmeal packets, brown sugar maple, cinnamon spice, apple walnut, you have created a breakfast that delivers the illusion of health while actively promoting the insulin spikes and triglyceride elevations that accelerate arterial plaque formation. A study published in the British Journal of Nutrition found that the glycemic index of instant oatmeal was 79, comparable to white bread, while the glycemic index of steel-cut oats was only 52. For adults over 60, that difference translates directly into inflammatory load on the arteries. The same oat, processed differently, produces dramatically different effects inside your blood vessels. Think of the difference between instant oats and steel-cut oats as the difference between a sugar cube dissolving instantly in a glass of hot water versus a whole sugar beet slowly metabolizing over 3 hours. One floods your bloodstream with glucose. The other trickles in gently, keeping blood sugar stable and insulin quiet. Quiet insulin means less arterial inflammation. Less inflammation means slower plaque formation. I remember a 69-year-old patient named Dorothy, a retired school teacher who had dutifully eaten instant oatmeal every morning for 9 years after her doctor recommended oatmeal for heart health. When she came to me with elevated triglycerides and borderline arterial stiffness on ultrasound, we sat down and went through her diet together. She was stunned. She had been doing everything she thought was right. The fix was as simple as switching from a paper envelope to a bag of steel-cut oats and adding 20 extra minutes in the morning. Within 3 months, her triglycerides had dropped by 18%, and her arterial stiffness measurements had improved measurably. The good news is this. The switch from instant oatmeal to steel-cut oats takes 1 week to become a habit. Cook them the night before and refrigerate if morning time is limited. No added sugar. Use a sliced banana, a handful of blueberries, or a drizzle of raw honey if needed. You keep the full beta-glucan benefit, you eliminate the blood sugar spike, and your arteries get the protection they were supposed to be getting all along. Now, we have arrived at number 1 on our countdown, and I want you to remember what I told you at the beginning of this video. This food is not butter. It is not bacon. It is not eggs. It is not even processed sugar in isolation. This is the one that will genuinely surprise you. Not because it seems dangerous, but because for the past 30 years, it has been actively recommended as a heart-healthy alternative, endorsed by health organizations, and consumed by hundreds of millions of people specifically because they were told it would protect their arteries. Number 1 on our countdown, The breakfast food a vascular surgeon warns is doing the most damage to arteries after age 60: margarine and vegetable oil spreads. I want to be very precise here, because this distinction matters enormously. I am not talking about real butter in moderate amounts. I am talking about the yellow spreads that were created to replace butter. Margarine, vegetable oil blends marketed under names like Heart Healthy Spread, products that contain partially hydrogenated or fully hydrogenated vegetable oils, and even the newer generation of plant-based spreads that still contain high concentrations of omega-6 polyunsaturated fatty acids like linoleic acid. Here is what is happening inside your body. When vegetable oils are processed, heated, pressurized, chemically altered to become solid at room temperature, they produce trans fats and oxidized lipid compounds that are among the most destructive substances your arteries can encounter. Trans fats, the partially hydrogenated variety, raise LDL cholesterol, lower HDL cholesterol, the protective kind, and trigger a systemic inflammatory response inside blood vessel walls that accelerates atherosclerosis at a rate no natural food can match. Even in the newer trans-fat-free margarines, the high concentration of omega-6 linoleic acid creates a dangerous imbalance with omega-3 fatty acids in the body. The human body needs omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids in a ratio of roughly 1:4. The modern Western diet, saturated with vegetable oil spreads, has pushed that ratio to 1:20 or even 1:30 in some individuals. That imbalance is profoundly pro-inflammatory. Research published in the journal Atherosclerosis found that elevated tissue levels of oxidized linoleic acid metabolites were directly associated with the progression of coronary artery plaque, and the adults in that study with the highest levels had a 61% greater risk of major cardiovascular events than those with the lowest levels. 61% higher risk. From the spread they were putting on their morning toast. Think of the difference between butter and margarine as the difference between a naturally occurring mountain stream and a chemically treated industrial runoff. Your arteries evolved over millions of years to process small amounts of natural animal fats. They did not evolve to process industrially hydrogenated plant oils. When those synthetic fats enter your bloodstream, your immune system does not recognize them as food. It treats them as foreign invaders. That immune response, repeated every morning, year after year, is one of the primary drivers of the coronary artery disease that kills more adults over 60 than any other cause. I remember a 72-year-old patient named Margaret, my own first name, which is why this case stays with me, a woman who had made every dietary substitution her doctor recommended. She had switched from butter to margarine at age 45. She had used vegetable oil spreads on her toast, her English muffins, her crackers for nearly 30 years. She came to me after a cardiac stress test revealed significant ischemia, a reduction in blood flow, to the front wall of her heart muscle. Her left anterior descending artery, the artery surgeons call the widowmaker, was 63% blocked. She had done everything right by the advice of her era. She had unknowingly been poisoning her arteries with every heart-healthy substitution she made. The good news is this: real butter, used in moderate amounts, is not the enemy your parents were told it was. A small pat of grass-fed butter on whole grain toast provides fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K2, a nutrient that actively directs calcium away from arteries and into bones. Avocado, with its monounsaturated oleic acid, is one of the most artery-protective fats available. Extra virgin olive oil, cold-pressed, is the gold standard morning fat for cardiovascular health according to multiple landmark studies. These are the fats your arteries know how to use. These are the fats that protect you. Now, you have heard all 5 breakfast foods, but before I give you the rapid summary, I want to fulfill a promise I made at the beginning of this video. I told you there is a set of protective rules, 5 of them, that must accompany everything you have just learned. Without these rules, changing your breakfast alone will not be enough. Rule 1. Always eat breakfast within 90 minutes of waking. When you fast past 90 minutes after waking, cortisol, your primary stress hormone, remains elevated. Elevated cortisol raises blood pressure, increases blood sugar, and directly stimulates arterial inflammation. A study published in Nutrients found that adults over 60 who consistently ate breakfast within 90 minutes of waking had measurably lower morning blood pressure than those who delayed. This one rule costs nothing and protects everything. Rule 2. Never eat breakfast while watching television or using a phone. Distracted eating accelerates consumption speed, which amplifies glucose spikes and the insulin response that follows. Eat at a table, sitting still, for at least 15 minutes. This is not a comfort suggestion. It is a vascular protection strategy. Rule 3. Drink 12 ounces of plain water before your first bite every morning. After 8 hours of sleep, your blood is at its most concentrated, its thickest. Thick blood moves slowly and forms microclots more easily. Research from the Journal of Cardiovascular Disease found that pre-meal hydration in adults over 60 reduced morning cardiovascular stress markers by up to 23%. Drink the water before you eat. Every single morning. Rule 4. Include one source of omega-3 fatty acids in your breakfast at least 4 days per week. Walnuts, ground flaxseed, chia seeds. Omega-3s directly counteract the inflammatory omega-6 dominance caused by decades of vegetable oil consumption. A study in Circulation found that omega-3 intake was associated with a 15% reduction in major cardiovascular events in adults over 65. Rule 5. Take a brisk 10-minute walk within 1 hour of finishing breakfast. Walking after eating activates muscle cells to absorb glucose without requiring insulin, which blunts the post-meal blood sugar spike. A study published in Diabetes Care found that a 10-minute post-meal walk reduced post-meal glucose by 22%. Your arteries do not need a gym, they need movement. Without these 5 rules, the rest of what you have learned today will not work with full effectiveness. These rules do not take extra time or money. They take awareness and consistency. Now let us bring this all together quickly. The 5 breakfast foods slowly clogging your arteries after 60, flavored yogurt, store-bought granola, processed breakfast meats, instant oatmeal, and at number 1, the one most people were told was protecting them, margarine and vegetable oil spreads. Each one alone is dangerous. Together, they create a perfect storm. Your arteries have been working for you in complete silence for 60, 70, 80 years. Right now, as you breathe and watch this video, your heart is contracting 70 times per minute, pushing blood through 100,000 miles of blood vessels without rest. Your arteries have absorbed every inflammatory meal, every processed oil, every sugar spike, and they have kept going. They have never asked you for anything. What I am asking you to do is not extreme. It is not expensive. It is breakfast, the 15 minutes each morning where you have more control over your vascular health than at any other point in your day. Change what goes onto that plate, and you change the trajectory of what is happening inside those vessels. Before you leave, I ask you to do 4 important things. First, subscribe to this channel. Every week, I share evidence-based vascular health information explained clearly for adults over 60. The information I share here has the potential to extend your life and protect your independence. Second, like this video. It takes 1 second, and it helps this message reach the people who need it most. Adults who are unknowingly damaging their arteries with the breakfast they were told was healthy. Third, leave a comment. Write the words, "I am switching my breakfast starting tomorrow." Your public commitment is not just for you. It may be exactly the encouragement someone else scrolling through these comments needs to make the same change. And finally, share this video with someone you love. A spouse, a sibling, a parent, a friend. You may never know whose life you protect by passing this information along.